India has not gone out and attacked anyone.
Hmm.
India has always been invaded.
Passive. We've been passive.
Yeah, and since we have not had that mindset of invading others, we did not develop that part of the science and technology. When I was a kid, India did not produce enough food grains for itself. People would have died of hunger. Australia and USA and other under this a scheme called PL 480, we used to get shiploads of grain, of wheat,
Right.
to feed the country.
So, what do you say, since you mentioned technology in defense, what do you think that these students need to focus on today, the 20, 22 years old of today, so that by the time they are 25, 26, we can entrust them with this responsibility of bringing back to us India that was?
The difference is that earlier when we put barriers, we were technologically far behind others, and we needed others to come in and then upgrade our technology to be able to compete with them and assimilate that technology. The difference now is that the difference now is not all that much. So therefore, in today's world, using the latest knowledge to develop our indigenous technology is something which did not make sense earlier, which makes sense now.
So, Nelson Mandela, one person, was a universal leader, respected, regarded by everybody.
And decades in jail.
Decades in jail, still.
And you know one thing which I get these snippets about Mandela, he never became bitter.
Yeah,
He
right.
was never bitter. And then the then white president, and you say integrity is a competitive advantage. Now if you are the boss and you have two persons, one is half bright and one is extremely bright, and you find extremely bright cheating, would you keep him in the company?
Not at all.
Yeah. And I don't know how to mention this, but there are two very successful business groups in India, A and B now.
Recently, I read a book which spoke about history of India and about India, which was before the British colonized us in the 1800s. So, what was India like at that time? In the 1700s and time before that, India was considered as one of the richest countries in the world. इनफैक्ट जो अभी हम सुनते हैं सोने की चिड़िया, जो हमारे ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स ने हमें बताया गया है, वो एक्चुअली सच था। World's 27% of the GDP was actually contributed by India. Such was our trade, such was the processes, and such was the economy that was undergoing at that time in India. So, what happened in these 200 years that we lost all our money and we lost our reputation in the world? We were colonized by the British during those times, and unfortunately, they looted us not only of our money but also of our education. They brought in illiteracy, they brought in ill health, and certain things that we have not been very successfully able to rebound even till today. Thankfully, we are in good hands now. We are coming back. We are the fastest growing economy in the world. We are respected and regarded around the world again. What needs is the youth which can bring back the lost reputation. So here I have a guest today who uh, is who has studied from the very prestigious IITs and IIM Ahmedabad, also who has had the privilege of leading the prestigious companies like Ranbaxy and Eli Lilly. He is also a faculty at the Ivy schools like the Wharton of the world, and he's a mentor at Lloyd Business School. I have the opportunity to discuss and be in conversation with Mr. Rajiv Gulati. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. Sir, I feel really sad and bad when I hear about India, which was just 200-300 years ago. वो कहाँ गया वो देश? पैसा तो गया ही गया। वो यूथ, वो माइंडसेट, वो पैशन, वेयर हैव वी लॉस्ट ऑल दैट? और आज मुझे लगता है कि नोबडी बेटर देन यू to throw light on how we can bring back that old legacy, which is now in the hands of youth of today. So, over to you on this.
Thanks. And I think you mentioned, or people know, that India used to account for 27% of world trade, which at one time had fallen to 1%, which
Absolutely.
is now coming back and going up. Um, so, see, India had both thought leadership, science, and economics and other things. We all talk about mathematics, zero, and decimal. Imagine, I just joke about it. Take Roman numerals, the X and V, and that is 15.
Mhm.
Try and multiply them. Can you take Roman numerals and multiply, and then how will you write a billion in Roman numerals?
Right.
So without
The zero.
zero and decimals and all, the science, physics, it wouldn't have progress, astronomy, everything we talk about. So I have a strange thought that India focused on economic development, arts, science. Look at the history, and you look at the paintings and carvings and the old temples. I think we didn't focus on the technological improvement in defense.
Mhm.
And that is one thing. The other was that India, as we have like one country, for a period of time, it wasn't, one dynasty. As long as it was one dynasty, we see Guptas and Mauryas, and we saw the growth and progress. But by the time British came in, there were small kingdoms, all kingdoms fighting with each other also. And there was UK, England is one country, and technologically advanced in armaments.
Mhm.
So that's what I said. That
Right. Defense.
today, what's
Technology
happening, that
defense.
India is focusing not only on economic development, but we have made enough development, and we have made our own indigenous air defense equipment, and now focusing on the new fifth generation aircrafts, and we are making tanks and guns. So I think these are the two combinations. A, we didn't focus on that aspect, that we need to defend ourselves, because by history, India has not gone out and attacked anyone.
Mhm.
India has always been invaded.
Passive. We've been passive.
Yeah. And since we have not had that mindset of invading others, we did not develop that part of the science and technology. And that is what actually almost killed us, because when British came, they had, उनके पास तोपें थी और वो सारी चीजें थी जो तलवार से कैसे लड़ोगे आप?
Mhm.
So you are focused on art, science, economics, development, and then comes an enemy which is far advanced in terms of armaments.
Right.
So that's where I think India has changed and is preparing itself for the future to defend itself.
So, technology is the word, if I pick up from your conversation, not only in defense,
The technology was there, but its utilization,
utilization,
in
integration was not there in all the
defense.
fields.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, sir, तब भी जब India is mainly focused on agriculture. We did not focus a lot on technology in these so many years, the last 60, 70 years, which transfers after independence, or even before that when the Britishers had colonized us. Then definitely there was no, working on technology other than the space stations, which uh, we did under Pandit Nehru.
I think you're missing one part. You're much younger than me. You don't know. There's something called PL 480.
Mhm.
When I was a kid, India did not produce enough food grains for itself.
Mhm.
People would have died of hunger. Australia and the USA and other, under this a scheme called PL 480, we used to get shiploads of grain,
Mhm.
of wheat,
Right.
to feed the country. And that is a challenge which was taken very early on.
Mhm.
I would say 60s and 70s. By 70s, though, the green revolution had happened, and we had become self-sufficient. And that focus on green revolution and then white revolution, uh, having enough food grains and then enough milk, that happened pretty early on.
But sir, the
But happened,
development
of
was,
course, after British.
but it was very slow. it was still very slow technology integration into especially farming, because we spend a lot of still, a lot of people are 60% of our land is in farming, and so even now technology integration is less, and the youth of today, if they have to make a future in business or in any kind of management, it has to be with technology integration. So, what do you say, since you mentioned technology in defense, what do you think that these students need to focus on today, the 20, 22 years old of today, so that by the time they are 25, 26, we can entrust them with this responsibility of bringing back to us India that was? How much ever slow the progress be, but at least, now we can automate, now we can learn the skills, so that we are now on the path of progress of bringing back that same glory that we have lost.
Uh, you know, uh, the things go in a cycle.
Mm.
They are cyclical. We started at one time with self-reliance,
Mhm.
and that hurt us because we put barriers to imports. With the result that what we had there was poor technology and high prices, and the world was moving ahead. Then we brought the barriers down and we said, let Indian companies compete with the global companies. Then it went up. Now again the barriers are coming back.
Mhm.
So now again we have to be Atmanirbhar Bharat. So this goes on. The difference is that earlier when we put barriers, we were technologically far behind others, and we needed others to come in and then upgrade our technology to be able to compete with them and assimilate that technology.
Uh-huh.
The difference now is that the difference now is not all that much.
Uh-huh.
So therefore, in today's world, using the latest knowledge to develop our indigenous technology is something which did not make sense earlier, which makes sense now.
Mhm.
So that's the direction the government has already taken. And in every field, whether you talk of IT, you talk of defense, you talk of pharmaceuticals, you see in every field
So the government is doing its bit,
Hmm.
like you said, but at the same time, the youth of today
But see,
also.
I would say the youth of today also, instead of just mindlessly focusing on what's happening in the world,
Mhm.
see its relevance and adaptation to our needs. Something which China has done,
Mhm.
of course, China being a dictatorship, they thought the whole population has to go in that direction. They
Right,
tell them.
right.
So you have Google, they have Baidu, and you have Amazon, and they have Alibaba, and you have Tesla, and they have BYD. So they are on their own trip. We are not like that, but even then, instead of mindlessly following what's happening, taking and adapting the technology to the specific Indian needs. See, our culture is different. Our temperature, a tropical country, its temperature is this. I'll give you an extremely stupid example from my field.
Mhm.
Uh, Patches as a drug delivery are very common in the world.
Right.
But the point is that those are cold countries.
Mhm. So patch as in a patch which is put on the skin
Put on the
to be
skin to
absorbed in
deliver,
the
like a pain
drug
relief
delivery.
patch or
Right.
something like that. So very common. Now, somebody was trying to launch in India. I'm like, are you mad?
Uh-huh.
A, Indian are hairy.
Yeah,
So when you peel off the patch, the hair come out. It's very painful.
absolutely.
Second, it's a tropical country. We sweat a lot.
He's sweaty.
It's very sweaty.
The
So
patch will fall off.
patch will fall off.
Yeah, yeah.
He spent 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And he has a patent in the world. He's made the best patch in the world.
Okay.
And he's created channels where the sweat goes into those channels.
Uh-huh.
And it continues to sick and deliver the drug over 12 hours, where the next best is 8 hours.
Okay, wonderful.
And the peeling off is stuff, but then he says, I can give you a small gadget to peel it off.
So
So what I'm saying is that you've taken that very, very tiny example, but you've taken that simple product, simple technology, and you've improved upon it to our needs, which in the result have come out as the best product in the world.
Yeah.
So that's possible in not only in pharmaceuticals, as I talk about, in every field.
Every product. In
Right.
fact, I love that case study of Starbucks also when this guy Schultz, when he started the company and he did so well in the United States, but when he entered Asia and especially when he came to India, he could not sell the same coffee, obviously, because we have different tastes. When he went to China, he could not sell the same coffee because different tastes. So, I mean, you would have seen the Starbucks in India sells kind of chais that we like.
We like.
So, it's customizing the taste as per the country that you're developing a business in. So, the youth of today, lesson one is that if you want to get into a business, you cannot mindlessly follow what is trending. You understand what is trending and then curate it as per the environment that you are in, and then make world class products.
You've summarized it extremely well. In fact, there's a friend of mine who was head of R&D.
Uh-huh.
He was he was like always agitated.
Mhm.
So I said, "What's your problem?" He said, "Why are we drinking Coca-Cola?
Mhm.
Why are we allowing Coca-Cola to come here and market, and the youth of today is all hooked up to Coca-Cola?" He says, "Look at the kind of exotic and wonderful and tasty and healthy drinks our country has.
Absolutely.
All over the country, there's so much of variety. We should be bottling those and selling all over the world, and we are drinking Coca-Cola."
Yeah. I think a great startup idea you've given to a lot of youth, and one has also happened in Paperboat. Also, we have seen how
What
they
exactly?
have come
The
up
Indian
with the,
fruits, Indian taste.
the amrases and all
Amras.
packaged and being sold better than the orange juices and the
And you
pomegranate
don't have
juices.
Amras anywhere else in the world, and I think it's a
Absolutely.
great product.
Uh-huh.
Why are we drinking? And same thing, potato chips. The savories of India.
Uh-huh.
Now look at Haldirams and Bikaner Walas. The way they have gone global.
Absolutely.
So those changes are happening, and
So selling local the global way.
most recent examples. Indian whiskey is being rated among top
Absolutely.
10.
Top 10.
So again, we are
Competing with the scotches,
Yeah.
but selling better than them.
Yeah, but the humorous anecdote, I was going to London for a business meeting, and the business partner there, he calls me, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm at the airport. I'm going towards the gate." No, go back to the duty free. I said, "What do you want?" He said, "I want Amrit."
Yeah.
See, that time this Indri and Rampur had not been launched.
Right.
So imagine me
Buying
carrying
Amrut from the duty
from
free.
Indian duty free and buying Amrit and carrying it to the UK.
The land of scotch.
Land of scotch. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, these are tiny little examples, but think of it, yeah, the liquor itself, the variety we
Right.
have all over the country, east, west, north, south, from Mahua to Feni,
Mhm.
is unbelievable.
So savories to our amrases to liquor to the patches that we have
To the
created.
patches, yeah.
I think in the 5 minutes only, I'm feeling very optimistic about bringing back the old legacy
Yeah.
back to India.
And in one case, we are using technology, for example, and other is I'm using the marketing knowledge.
Absolutely.
So again, whether it is the science of marketing or whether it is science of pharmaceuticals, we can be one up on the world. Take that technology, adapt it, and the minute you adapt it, you realize you have something better.
Mhm. Absolutely. In fact, when I often talk to millennials, which are also some of the business students that we cater to at Lloyd Business School, I sometimes, box my perception into four things, the four boxes that I create. One is parenting. The second I feel is the environment. And the third I feel is impatience that they come from. And fourth is third technology. So I'll take your bits on each of these. So parenting, I feel that these millennials, they sometimes feel that they are entitled to free India because they were born in free India as all of us, but more entitled because they saw more money than what you did or what I did. So they are entitled to not working in sales job, like you also mentioned, and they want a managerial job immediately as they step out of business education. Second, I would say is environment that they grow up in, whether they are growing up in more deprived places or they are growing up in more comfortable environments, which, actually grooms of what they are going to develop. Then impatience, because this is the time of instant gratification.
Mm.
We are so much in the social media fix these days, all of us. That is, we want instant gratification, instant validation. So become very impatient, and we cannot stay with the discovery process of any product for a longer period of time. If we have created something, we want it to sell fast and make money very quickly, or we move on. And it's not about failing fast and moving on. It's about not being patient with how the product is going
No,
to survive.
No, you said instant gratification and then impatience. I think you summarize it
Absolutely.
very well.
Yeah. And the last thing which I feel, which you already mentioned, the technology, which if they don't study, I don't think that there is a future for anybody in any domain. What do you think could be added to this? So I have a task for you. What could be added to this for the millennials? Which they can upskill in
Yeah.
or do.
See, these are the fundamentals that you have talked about. I don't want to add. I can only elaborate.
Add your viewpoint.
Yeah,
on this,
elaborate.
yeah.
You talked about parenting. So, to my mind, parenting is about the values uh, that children imbibe. See, where do children? Children learn from parents.
Hmm.
Children learn from teachers. And nowadays, much more children learn from each other. So the first thing you have to give children is the right environment, which includes the right school and the right parenting, because this is the environment which is, unfortunately, the social media and that electronic media is influencing a lot.
Mhm.
But at least this is what you can try. Now, closer home, I want to give you an example. Of course, we joke with our children that your lifestyle is different because your father is richer than my father.
Mhm.
But the closer home example is that you can take children to and in Gurgaon, you have places which are more expensive per square foot than the south of Bombay.
Absolutely.
Now, you can go and live there, and children grow up in that isolation. And this whole thing you talk about entitlement, this becomes even more acute.
Yeah.
Rather than you can decide to live yourself in a more inclusive place where you have people from different parts of society and geographies, and the children growing up with other children in
Right,
that
right.
atmosphere. So the values they imbibe
More
are
adaptability,
yeah,
more values.
and
Absolutely.
diversity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, diversity is both economic diversity and geographical and cultural diversity. Diversity of actually the real diversity is not any of these, the demographics I'm talking about. The real diversity is diversity of thought.
Thoughts.
The ability of the children to be able to adapt and live with different thought processes, different perspectives, rather than just having one single perspective. So as parents, I think the first thing we need to do is to give an environment which is real.
Absolutely.
Because the minute you step
And diverse.
and
So
diverse.
so nicely put in.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
minute you and diverse again thought process and so the minute they step out, and they go in a different country or they go in a different city, if they are used to, they're able to adapt to that diversity. Imagine how comfortable they will feel anywhere in the world, rather than growing up in a cocoon.
Localized.
Yeah. And then go out. So I think that's the first
I
part.
think very, very well put in. And in fact, very closely, I tell my students of management also, first thing when they come to the classroom, there is a common urge of connecting with people from the same geographical region that you come
Exactly.
from. Calcutta, you're from Calcutta, Calcutta, Lucknow, Lucknow, Jammu, Jammu. They all get together, talk the same language. So I make sure that they are not together. That they sit separately, they team up with people who come from diverse backgrounds, and not so from the diversity of their food, or diversity of their domain backgrounds, but so well put in diversity of values, what they have learned from their families. And once they adjust to this classroom, then whatever corporate or job they join in, they understand, and there's a lot of adaptability. So very well put in from the
So
millennials.
next you come to instant gratification. What they need to do is,
Hmm.
so the way instant gratification comes, you go to a person,
Hmm.
give me tips to succeed overnight,
Right,
right? You go and do it, and then you see what happens.
Yeah.
You think Tendulkar will give you a tip, then overnight you will become a world-class cricketer?
Right.
Or Kohli will give you, look at his fitness. And you know where I see that? I visited Bombay, my first cousin, and his grandson. Now he's aspiring to be a cricketer.
Mhm.
Fortunately, the opportunities today are you can be a chef, you can be a cricketer, you can be an actor, you can be a singer, you can be a corporate person or a start a what you want to be a unicorn, a startup.
Mhm.
You can do anything. The guy is, I think, 10 years old. The food he eats, how many protein, the exercise he does,
Mhm.
and his mother is with him all the time, goes to school. After school, he goes to practice every day, and he's tired by the time he comes in 9 o'clock. He might or might not make it, but there'll be at least a decade of hard work before he makes it.
Actually, yes.
So you are not looking at that.
Hmm.
Now look at our example. You look at me and say, okay, he was a CEO of a company or he was
Mhm.
president of a company. The fact remains that in my entire life in almost every country, whether it's the USA, whether it is Italy, whether it is Malaysia or Australia or especially India, every month, at least couple days, I work with the sales rep at whatever, sit with them on a behind on with them on a two-wheeler and go on a whatever location they are going to, small town, big towns, and rotate geographically and see real life how the selling is happening.
Mhm.
And all the leaders you see, Unilever and all my batchmates, IIT, and then of course with me, I am Ahmedabad. Uh, they start with remote villages of sales. I mean, you're selling soaps and shampoos, then you go and see
All the
the
struggle
difference.
that
All that.
went through this, the challenges that you faced, and obviously we would see only the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
We don't see what is beneath it, what is
Yeah.
holding it. The roots of that oak tree,
Mm.
which is holding it, have
Yeah.
been so strong, and that definitely is not instant gratification. So
Absolutely.
there are no
It is.
tips to overnight
Yeah.
success.
But there is a flip side to it. We talked of parenting. So the parents, unfortunately, cannot and absolutely should not impose. So all these stories, at my time I used to cross a river and swim across the river to go to school. That doesn't gel.
Yeah.
So I'm saying,
Because circumstances have changed. Like I said, the fourth bit environment.
yeah.
We are in a different environment
Yeah.
now.
So the people, the students or the children, or in organization, now more than ever, it was always there. That's how it should be. More than ever, they don't go by what you say,
Mhm.
but they get influenced by what you do.
Absolutely.
So, setting a right example. So, uh, tomorrow, then our youth, when they become um, rich and famous or successful, and they are the role models, then they have the same duty that today's role models have to share with them that, success is never overnight. There's so much of hard work, uh, thought, and planning behind it.
And
to
hard work
share it.
being equated to, as they say, sugar or jaggery. The more sugar you put, the sweeter your dish is going to be. And then the leaders which are created synonymous to you, then they have a long way to go. I mean, one name that comes to my mind all the time is leaders like Nelson Mandela. When we talk to management students like today and to the business leaders of tomorrow. So Nelson Mandela, one person, was a universal leader, respected, regarded by everybody.
And decades in jail.
Decades in jail, still.
And one thing which I get these snippets about Mandela, he never became bitter.
Yeah,
He
right.
was never bitter. And then the then white president and then Mandela jointly held election, and then Nelson Mandela became president. He and I think it was Leclerc who was the president. I maybe got
Right,
mixed up.
right. During that time.
So both got Nobel Peace Prize.
Right.
So Mandela didn't say, I'll beat you up and I'm very bitter and you did
Forcefully.
wrong, forcefully take it and kill him. And then he gave equal credit to him. Also, on top of being, that he kept him 20 years in jail,
So
he comes out and
because-
shares Nobel Peace Prize with him.
with him. Yes.
So the other thing which we entirely miss in business dealings and negotiation would be helpful in life,
Mhm.
which I am also struggling with. We fail to see the other's perspective.
Mhm.
I have my background, I have my biases, and I have my perspective.
Mhm.
So does the other person.
Absolutely.
I refuse to be sensitized to it.
Uh-huh.
I refuse to see the other person's perspective, and that's where
The
Uh,
scuffle
it
starts.
starts. Whether it is with your peers, whether
Mhm.
it's with your parents, whether it's your
Mhm.
teachers, whether it's with your boss or your colleagues. So, if we are talking of diversity, that you will be comfortable in diversity only when you are willing to see the other's
And
perspective.
one of the biggest leadership attribute is empathy. It's actually empathy, like you said, considering others' viewpoint. And how did Nelson Mandela learn this? His father was the president of the tribal community. He comes from the tribe.
Right.
And so when I was reading about him, the father used to conduct his meetings sitting in a round table. He used to accompany his father in these meetings. And they used to sit in the round table with no extra or separate seat for a head. So they were all like equals, though he was the leader of the tribe. And he was always the last to speak. Unlike today, when in the boardrooms the leader speaks and then gives a chance to everybody else that I think like this, and then what do you think about this? So, those days he used to speak the last, he used to listen out to everybody and then give his, speech towards the end. I think that was one attribute that Mandela learned from his father.
Yeah, which
And when
goes back to King Solomon, actually.
King Solomon, yes, that you can't only give your viewpoint, but listen to. So listening also is a
Yeah.
big attribute.
So it is
of
said,
leadership.
and I use it, that in a group, if everybody agrees with everybody else, then apart from one person, everybody else is redundant.
Absolutely.
So if the whole team is agreeing with boss, the team is not needed. I mean, if what value boss is getting out of the team, if there is no different thought process,
सर
with
वो
the different
विद्वान
ideas.
क्या जहाँ मतभेद नहीं.
Exactly.
सो मतभेद हो तो ही विद्वान बने, नहीं तो सब एक हाँ में हाँ मिला रहे हैं.
हाँ,
तो
हाँ, मैं
तो
आता
हमें वो मैनेजर्स नहीं चाहिए जो अपने लीडर की हाँ में हाँ
हाँ,
मिलाएं, बट इतनी कॉम्पिटेंसी डेवलप कर पाएं कि उनके साथ रिस्पेक्टफुली आर्ग्यू करके
हाँ,
अपना
हाँ,
पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू
no.
भी रख पाएं.
See, I would like to shift to values,
Yeah.
because those are critical. And the first one is respect for the individual. You can argue about the issue. You cannot attack the person.
Hmm.
You are useless, you are bad, or you are from this community or that community. And that's where the problems begin. You say, this particular issue, I have a disagreement with because of this logical reasons. And the other person puts his point, you put yours. And whatever is the right decision you take without attacking each other. And the other things with youth of today, it's instant gratification bring is that the old values which are critical, like integrity. And when we started um, business, when I was the first employee of that Eli Lilly from
Right,
USA
right.
came to India, we were used to talk about it. And we used to say integrity is a competitive advantage.
Mhm.
Now, if you are the boss and you have two persons, one is half bright and one is extremely bright, and you find extremely bright cheating, would you keep him in the company?
Not at all.
Yeah. And I don't know how to mention this, but there are two very successful business groups in India.
Mhm.
A and B. Now, live here, I don't want to name names.
Absolutely. I understand you.
You know the which two
We
companies,
understand.
R and T.
We understand what you're talking
So,
about.
so you take a bunch of business MBA students and say you have company T offering 80 rupees and company R offering 100 rupees. Which one you will join? Everybody says, I'll join company T.
Right.
You know, because it's a company which is known for its integrity. And you are marketing something. If your customer knows you are a person of integrity, you may not get a sales in the short term because you are truthful and not telling a lie to sell your product. But then a customer trusts you and then you get a loyal customer for life. So whether it is sales, it's marketing, business, and career, it plays such an important role. And that's where I said the parents can be the role models in terms of what they do. And if uh, children imbibe that, actually it will help them a lot in life and in career.
So such a huge lesson of management and leadership coming from you, sir. And though we have not spoken about them individually, but if I sum them up, then technology first, which is needed of a business student or an aspirant or somebody who's already in a job right now or leading a startup, is so first is technology. Then you spoke so well about empathy, stepping into other person's shoes and understanding their perspective. And the third being their parentage and about instant gratification and what lies beneath the successful oak trees that we see, which is competency and challenges that they have faced so much
I would
in
like to
life.
bring one more
Yes, absolutely.
attitude.
Attitude.
Um, in a different forum, I shared with you that when I started my career, I was thrown in the deep end.
Yeah, right.
There's a group product manager, I am his group, and they were managing the entire marketing. So, how would you respond? The two ways of responding to any problem in life, especially in the organization. You are a whiner, you complain, or you try to find a solution.
Mhm,
Are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution?
mhm,
Are you trying to find a solution or are you just complaining?
mhm.
And this makes a humongous difference.
Huge.
So, if I'm recruiting, I know whom I'm going to recruit. In fact, we talk about I was the first employee of the joint venture that we started, and for 15 years, it remained the fastest growing company. And me and my boss sat down and he says, forget the education. Because I was talking about we need BSc, we need males. He said, we'll have BCom, BAs, we will have males, females. Let's not even talk about that.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the profile, the kind we need. And I listened to him. I
Right.
said, it's an entirely different perspective.
Mhm.
And then I got aligned with it and I brought a psychological profiling. In fact, we never recruited anybody without psychological profiling, and integrity and attitude were some of the values we were checking. And,
So the
and
company,
when we
the
brought it,
organization is looking for solutions and solution providers
exactly,
rather than
exactly.
problem creators.
And you know what happened when we brought in those kind of people and they started as fresh graduates, all the vice presidents in oncology and diabetes and CEO of AstraZeneca, Glaxo, Roche, um, Aris, well, they started as sales rep in our
Mhm.
company.
Right.
So when we started a company, we didn't have products.
Mhm.
So we said we'll get right people. 15 years, we were the fastest growing company. Just because we had the right people.
Right.
And this is an element people miss. So I joke about it that today's success, I have a startup, and what I need is a good idea and ability to raise money.
Mhm.
But that's short-lived.
Mhm.
So I think in last 10 years that I've retired, at least 50 individuals and startups of different renewable energy, investment banking,
They've been
consumer health, they've
men-
come to me, and some I am
Mentored by-
officially mentor or not. There's only one person who has come to me that tell me what right environment and culture I create and I manage. I said,
yeah.
out of 52 people come, you are the first one. He's a BTech, MTech from IIT. He's a company which is already growing and is already profitable.
Okay.
And already has got funding.
Wow.
He says, but I'm realizing that if I don't do that, then it is not a long-term sustainable. Talk of the companies, which is like the company I worked for 19 years, Eli Lilly, which is the most successful product in the history of mankind, Monjaro, which is going to be a $45-50 billion brand. It's a 150-year-old company. Now, that kind of a longevity or durability, you can't create by just fundraising and one idea and again we go to instant gratification. If you're building a legacy, If you're building Tatas, then you know that.
So attitude brings in that difference, and we understand then who is hired and who becomes successful, whether it's a corporate or a business venture. We understand the difference, and that's where I say that there are two types of people. So one is who can see what they want, and the others will see a thing which will prevent them from getting what they want. So that would be the attitude that we talk
Yeah,
about.
I mean, that's exactly it. Whether you know what you want and you're complaining about it, or you know what is preventing you and you find a solution to it.
Right. So the industry is looking for solution providers.
And when you rise, if you realize all this, then you will have the right kind of people with you. And sum total of these values is what I call culture.
Mhm.
So you are creating a culture which is long lasting.
Understand. So, sir, you've added a very, very important element of attitude into the entire equation of the future managers and leaders who should use attitude not only to find a job today, but also to sustain it long term by being solution providers rather than bringing problems to their bosses or to organizations. Anything else you feel is important to
Yeah,
these students?
just two things. The the word we used to use to explain what you said was entrepreneurs.
Entrepreneurs, yes.
No,
Intrapreneurs.
entrepreneurs. You are
Intrapreneurs.
an
Yeah. The
entrepreneur
I.
within the organization.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
you are trying to find solution and grow the business like an entrepreneur, but within the organization.
Huge accountability.
Yeah, you're assuming it. You're
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
accountability. The other part which I want to elaborate on culture. 19 years I worked with Eli Lilly and Moscow office, and of course India office, and the corporate center, and uh, in Vienna, and of course visited. I think the China, uh, the affiliate. I don't know how many times.
Mhm.
Bangkok, many countries. So the point I'm making is that it's one uniform culture,
Mhm.
and it's in 200 countries, and it acquires talent globally. And the global talent obviously move in different geographies in different countries. Their ability to perform is enhanced tenfolds when they are finding the same culture everywhere.
Mhm.
The culture is pervasive globally. And see how easy, how comfortable it becomes to go and perform and grow the business everywhere.
Mhm.
Because it's the same values, talking of respect our individual for integrity or attitude, and then you walk in and everybody is speaking the same language, and meaning physically the language is
Mhm.
different, but business-wise the language is same.
Absolutely.
So uh, I cannot overemphasize these softer aspects which are being ignored today.
Mhm. So I'll take one last piece of advice. I'll announce that, and then we'll sum it up. Uh, so, I think culture being very important about what you just spoke, and to sum it up, sir, about what the managers and the leaders of today and tomorrow are looking forward to. This technology, empathy, upskilling, competency, culture, most importantly, the attitude of the person or the learner. One last piece of advice that I take from you as a global leader on what these students of management would like to know, or how they become more employable, how they sustain and grow in the jobs that they already have. What one piece of advice would you like to give to them, or maybe something that you feel that somebody should have given to you in your 20s, something that you would like to share with them?
Yeah, something the advice I would have liked to have received and like to give to others is that as early as possible, find out uh, what you really want to, what you enjoy.
Mhm.
And it is saying that if you enjoy what you're doing, then you don't have to work for the rest of your life.
Right.
Because uh, that finding that out brings in other aspects. I'll just digress a little. Once somebody wanted to recruit me as the CEO of a company, I refused. But he says, but tell me, what does it take? You started Eli Lilly in India and fastest growing company for 15 years. What does it take to create a new successful company?
Uh,
I said, it takes an obsession.
Yeah.
He stood up. He says, the best answer I ever heard. So the point is, if you are
So not only liking, the word is
obsessed,
obsession.
obsessed, because if you are really into it, then two things happen. Then you're all consumed, your entire thought process, your energy, your ideas flowing into it because you're so happy, you feel joyful about it. Second is, then you're constantly improving also. So I have this saying that individuals, companies, countries, the decline begins when you stop learning.
Mm.
So if you are obsessed with something, that any new thing which is happening, any technological advancement that's happening, you are constantly up there learning, growing, because you always are there. But I would just like to add one small thing. As you rise, you become CEO, you become boss.
Mhm.
There is something beyond career, profession, and money. So I think in your goals, there has to be a goal uh, above all this,
Mhm.
which is uh, social. Unless what you are doing eventually benefits the society, or in some way you as an individual beyond that is able to benefit the society, uh, these are transient.
Trivial
Yeah,
things.
they come and go. You have money today, you don't have tomorrow, and the business is the way technology changes. New businesses come up, old ones fail. Uh, but there is something which always remains, because if you have that higher goal in mind, I think that sustains you
I think
through
this
your life.
noble thought could have come only from you. You've studied from the best institutions. You've struggled, you've faced your challenges in life, and you've worked. In fact, you've been obsessed with your work and then performed. You've made Eli Lilly and Ranbaxy what they are today. And I'm sure all these industries, especially the pharmaceutical industry, will stay indebted to you for that. We had a beautiful conversation, not only for management aspirants, but also for people who are in their current jobs, who are, in their startups, who are doing their ventures, because we got to understand not only the technical point of view, but also the kind of culture which has to be maintained within the organizations to make them long term. So many thanks to you, sir. And it was such a pleasure speaking to you. I think to many more, we are going to meet more and elaborate on all of these points so that the world can benefit more from your learnings.
No,
Thank you
thanks
very
for
much.
having me here, and
Thank you.
thanks for listening to me.
Thank you. So this reminds me of the story of the lumberjack, and which I heard as a child, but it still reverberates so much within me when it comes to learning attitudes. So there were two lumberjacks at one time, and both of them used to start cutting wood at the same time in the morning and finish at the same time in the evening. Both of them used to cut the same amount of wood during the day. The only difference between the two lumberjacks was that the second lumberjack used to take a break of 1 hour in between during the day, and he used to go out, like where they were cutting trees in a jungle. He used to take a break and move out from there and come back after 1 hour. This used to continue days after days, but the amount of wood that they cut during the day was the same. In fact, as the days progressed, the second lumberjack was able to cut more number of trees. So the first one got very intrigued, and he asked one day the second guy that we start at the same time, we finish at the same time in the evening, and during the day you take a break also. So where do you go during that 1 hour? He said, I go home. What do you do at home? He said, I go and sharpen my axe and come back to the job with a more sharpened axe. That is why he could cut more number of trees. And this session today, these kind of sessions in future also are there to sharpen our axes, to increase our learnings of certain things, processes, leadership attributes that we have not known about in the past. So I believe that it is not about what you achieve during the day, but what you achieved during your entire career by sharpening your axe multiple times during that career. I'm sure that the session that we witnessed today was of benefit to you. And I thank our guests again. And thank you, and onwards and upwards from here.